Welcome back. Today, we're cutting right through the corporate jargon to look at the absolute engine of modern commerce. We're doing a complete deconstruction of how companies actually make money. I mean, we hear buzzwords like synergy or disruption tossed around all the time, right? But if you want to truly understand a company's prospects, its risks, and its real financial profile, you've got to examine the anatomy of its business model.
To see just how tangled these modern business engines can get, listen to this crazy paradox from a recent Netflix annual report. They basically acknowledge that while Amazon Prime Video is this fierce competitor, Netflix actually relies completely on Amazon Web Services, AWS, to deliver their content to over 200 million subscribers. Just imagine that for a second. A massive rival is simultaneously an essential supplier. This paradox perfectly highlights why we can't just take a company at face value. We really have to look under the hood.
So here is our blueprint for today's explainer. Defining the business model, pricing and revenue models, proposition and value chain, conventional versus unconventional, and digital platforms and networks.
Section 1. Defining the business model.
Anytime you're breaking down a business, you've got to ask yourself 5 core questions. Who are the target customers? What is the product or service being offered? Where is the firm selling, meaning what are its channels? How much are they charging? And finally, how is the firm organized to actually execute all of this? Now, what's really fascinating here is that a successful business model doesn't even need to be based on some brand new invention. Take IKEA, for example. They certainly didn't invent furniture. Actually, scratch that. They didn't invent anything new at all. They just remixed these 5 familiar elements into a completely unique, low-cost model. Flat packing products, having the customers assemble them, and using a massive showroom channel. The magic is entirely in the combination.
Section 2. Pricing and revenue models.
Because honestly, companies don't just pull numbers out of thin air, right? They use highly specific strategies to capture exactly what a customer is willing to pay. There are 4 really common approaches here. First is tiered pricing, which changes based on volume or features. Then there's dynamic pricing. Think about surge pricing on a ride-sharing app during rush hour. Prices flex up and down with supply and demand. Value-based pricing is super interesting. It's heavily used in pharmaceuticals, where a drug's price is often set based on the medical savings it creates by avoiding hospitalizations rather than just what it costs to manufacture the pill. And finally, auction models, which completely rely on a bidding process.
Let's look at 2 absolute classic models. First up, the razor and razorblade model. This is where companies sell you the initial equipment insanely cheaply, like a razor handle or a printer or a video game console, essentially trapping you into buying their high-margin consumables over and over again, like the blades or the printer ink. Now contrast that with bundling. This is when companies tie complementary services together, like your cable TV and your internet. They do this because the extra cost of providing that second service to you is incredibly low, but it significantly locks you into their ecosystem. But what happens when things go digital? How do these platforms scale so insanely fast? They usually rely on freemium or subscription models. Freemium gives you basic access totally for free, maybe supported by ads, just to rapidly grow that user base, hoping you'll eventually pay for a premium upgrade. Once you have a massive digital crowd, the cost of adding one more user is basically zero. Subscriptions, on the other hand, trade actual ownership for continuous access. And this isn't just for magazines anymore. It's used for everything from media streaming to massive enterprise cloud computing, giving companies these beautifully predictable recurring revenue streams.
Section 3. Proposition and value chain.
So why do you actually choose one company over another? That's the value proposition. It hinges on product capabilities, customer service levels, how convenient the sales process is, and relative pricing. The crucial takeaway here is that a strong value proposition goes way, way beyond just the physical product. Think about Tesla. Their value proposition isn't just, hey, we sell cars. It's high-performance electric propulsion, zero emissions, cutting-edge software updates, and, crucially, a proprietary high-speed charging network. They've built an entire ecosystem that justifies a premium price tag.
But making big promises is easy. Delivering on them means getting perfectly organized. Michael Porter's famous value chain framework neatly splits a company's functions into 2 distinct areas. First, you have the primary activities. These are the direct, hands-on actions like inbound logistics, operations, and marketing and sales. And then, supporting all of that, you have the support activities, things like firm infrastructure, human resources, and technology development. By mapping out a business exactly like this, you can identify which step is adding real value, which step is just draining costs, and where a company actually has a true competitive advantage.
Section 4. Conventional versus unconventional.
It's so easy to look at today's corporate world and just assume things have always been this way. But what is strictly conventional today was once a radical, unconventional innovation. Flying on an ultra-low-cost, no-frills airline, that was a massive disruption to the legacy carriers back in the day. Paying a monthly subscription fee for cloud-based software as a service instead of buying a physical disk totally changed the tech industry forever. E-commerce marketplaces completely upended traditional retail, and discount brokerages with zero-commission trades totally democratized investing. It just goes to show, innovation eventually becomes convention.
Section 5, Digital Platforms and Networks. If you take away just one single concept about the digital age from this explainer, make it this: network effects. This is the idea that a network literally increases in value to its users as more users join. Think about a messaging and payment app like WeChat in China. It is incredibly valuable precisely because everyone else you know is already using it. The larger it gets, the more indispensable it becomes, and the harder it is for any new competitor to break into the market simply because they don't have that massive user base. It's a self-reinforcing cycle of total dominance.
Now, these network effects generally come in two flavors. First, you have one-sided networks, where users just interact with other similar peers. The telephone network or an app like Venmo are perfect examples. You really just want your friends on Venmo so you can pay each other. But then we have multi-sided networks. These platforms are wild because they bring together entirely different groups of users who desperately need each other. Visa connects cardholders with merchants. Airbnb connects travelers with property hosts. A food delivery app connects hungry consumers, local restaurants, and independent drivers all at the exact same time. As one group grows, it instantly attracts more of the other groups, creating exponential value and massive barriers to entry.
Which brings us to one final thought for today. Take a second and just look at your smartphone. What is the ultimate multi-sided platform you relied on today, and how are its invisible network effects shaping your life, your choices, and, well, your wallet? Next time you tap to order, swipe to pay, or stream a video, try using this anatomy of a business framework. Look right past the slick marketing, ask those 5 core questions, and figure out who is really paying whom. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and keep learning.